Hi, everyone. I think we're having a small group today. Doesn't seem like a lot of you have questions on the new assignment. So I wonder if you have the chance to take a look at the new assignment and if you have any questions about it.
Or is it too easy? I see that no one seems to have asked anything on Discord either. Because it's a small group, so feel free to just shout out whatever you think. Yeah.
Right. So how about the conceptual question? What do you find? How do you find the conceptual questions? The number 1 and 2. Cool. Yeah, I think the dark forest one should be quite straightforward too. If you got that, if you got everything set up in the assignment 1 already, because this time I think most of the implementation is in Solidity. Right. So, cool.
Have people been thinking about their final projects as well? It's an important time as you kind of reach like an inflection point in the class. So be thinking about that. Oh, great. Has Drew been helpful? Awesome. Yeah, I feel like Hakwan's amazing at connecting you with people you should talk to. And so he's one of his many skills. Oh, interesting. Are you taking it in a different direction then, or are you just going to try to dive deeper into that? Cool. Yeah, that's actually important to have multiple ideas, as you kind of allude to in this assignment. It's good to think about many ways you can go and then try to prune the space of possibilities as you go along. So yeah, great job, Samar. And also, Samar was awarded Most Helpful Student for the first week. So congrats to him, and thank him, everyone, for all the help he's done in the Discord channels at last week. We really appreciate it. We really do.
Right. So for those who just joined us, is there any question that you have on assignment 2?
Lancel asked about a final project. In fact, it's almost the opposite. So we almost encourage you to not form teams. If you feel that this is something you can do on your own, usually it will be you'll be better off not forming teams. Partly because we don't really know each other so well. That's something that we'll talk about. In fact, if you think about the tech space, most startup fall out because the team members don't coordinate well together, and the coordination overhead quite often can be very large. So I think the default should be you should do it on your own. But if you do end up finding a teammate that you think you really have complementary skills and you have a common vision and you want to build something together, that's fine too. And the absolute maximum is 3. In fact, most cases, I think 2 is too many. So this is not mandatory at all. Yeah, so if you have ideas about projects, feel free to just DM me and run it by me. This is quite, I know, against what we've said so far in the course, that you should avoid DMs and not to clog up the tutors, the TA's message boxes. And because of this, if it's about the assignment, I think talking about it in the open Discord channel, as you guys see, has been much more effective, and people can learn from each other. But if you have your own ideas, feel free to DM me. I'm here to help. And yeah, like what Hunter said, you should have more ideas than one. Don't jump at your first idea. So no one succeeds by jumping at the first idea that came to mind. Usually, it's a long process. And in fact, next week we will have Steve. So this coming Thursday we will have Joseph Bono came over, and he's one of the basically OG cryptographic. He's written a textbook on cryptocurrency. He's the one who invented, together with his colleagues, the variable delay functions. So he's a really very influential scholar in the field. He's coming on Thursday. And then next Thursday we'll have Stephen Ted, the founder of Harmony, who came, and we'll have a chat about what projects are good to do. And that's probably going to be very useful, because I've known Stephen for decades actually, but I'll tell you more about the background. But the past few years has been a process of me keep telling him ideas, and he would just shoot everyone down. And so he and I also did this process. You need many ideas to find something worth doing in the end. Yes. So the idea has to be CK related. Yeah. Otherwise, it would be outside of the scope here. But it can be used in many different ways, right? CK. So it can be for privacy. Now that you guys have studied this a bit, it can be for privacy. It can be for succinctness. And then this coming Thursday, we'll cover the final use case, which is for fairness. So to ensure that something is truly fairly random, no one loading the dice, avoiding collusion, that sort of avoiding cheating. So with these three, you should be able to think of something you can do. And I think I also encourage people to think small. Don't try to be too ambitious about coming up with something completely original. I mean, that you should do at some point in your life, but maybe not in the context of just a final project with a few weeks. So quite often, if you find, I think the two ways to go about it, one is you find something else that already existed, and you try to fork it and add a CK element to enhance it. I think that will already be great. If you can actually pull it off, make it launch, and people actually use it, that's a huge achievement in any. And actually also, like, financially, it might be successful, not just intellectually, but also it can be a very lucrative way to go. And another way would be to take something existing already within the CK space and just try to, fork it and again enhance it, embellish it, make it your own. But don't try to build something too original. In fact, that probably is not necessary and may not really help you that much. Yeah, so Miguel asked about machine learning. Yeah, so there is work with machine learning. If you like to, you can post a question on Discord. I can send you more materials too. I think a lot of people come into the space are interested in machine learning. Actually, I think Cathie and Hunter also both have a background in machine learning. But to apply machine learning right now in the CK space, we decided that it may not be such a good thing to take you guys too deep into. Basically, there are two background I can share. One is from the moonshots that you see, that one of it is a machine learning use case. You can see how limited it is even now. So it's not clear that you can actually develop a product. And another full background story must be about Don Song, the professor at UC Berkeley. And I think a few years ago, basically, she started Oasis with the vision that you will combine machine learning with a lot of CK tech. But I think it's fair to say that I mean, the company is doing well, it still exists, and I know people who work there. But I think basically there hasn't been as much traction. I kind of, I'm not totally sure why this is the case myself, because Don is like someone who's really as good as it gets in this space of doing research. So I don't think there has been no progress in the research or anything. But partly it may have something to do with the fact that ultimately people don't seem to care about privacy enough to drive the market to really have a go at the data hoarders. So machine learning, as you guys, some of you would know, like you need a lot of data for it to work. I mean, it's not, you can't just machine learn some small problems. It has to be really large data sets. And those data sets right now are all held by the big companies like Google, Amazon, Zoom probably has a lot of our recordings and everything, and they don't share data with us. And part of it is because precisely of privacy issues, right? They can't just share public the data, make the data public. So to solve the problem, there's a technical advantages in using machine learning in the context of CK, but there seems to be a lot of just political and coordination problems there. So if one day, let's say Google would promise to somehow make all the data private, but then to verify that the models are actually doing what it does, it will be great. But I think right now they just don't have the incentives. You see, like they are now hoarding the data, and people just gave away their permissions anyway, right? To use Google, I already signed a lot of, whatever agreements that I usually don't read them. I'm not sure you do either. I think most people just click, okay, agree, and they just gave away the permission to them. And all that Google has to do is to not do something really evil to damage its own reputation. So all they have to do is to not post the data on public or let it be hacked. And then meanwhile, they just do whatever they do. There's not much incentive for them to make that data both private and shareable and all that. So that might be one reason the field hasn't really moved so far. But if you can really think of a useful use case, I can send you background material and help you how to combine your machine learning background and try to do something too. It's just not so obvious that within the coming year we'll have any usable product in the scene. Sounds like you guys are all kind of mostly more concerned about the final project than assignment 2, which may be a good sign, I think. So most of you have at least started assignment 2, is that right? Yes, yay, nay? Yeah. And does it seem easier than assignment 1, or you guys are getting into the groove and feel okay? Yeah. That's good. That actually is very good to know. I can tell you assignment 3 probably won't be much harder than assignment 2. So it's in part to, make sure that you guys are not overloaded. It's about time you should start to think about your final project and start doing research on it. Yeah. So I think that's right. The initial part would be hard. So I think in the next assignment, we will cover Semaphore, which is a tool set that might have its own quirks as well. But I think once you have that as well, I think you can pretty much do most things. So your final project should be good to go. Yeah, a lot of this just teething problems, right? It's not like, I think many of you are very good at programming. I can see your background is pretty good. It's just that learning a new tool always have this unpleasant initial bump on the learning curve. All right, I talked a lot. I should give it back to Cathie and see whatever she wants to say.
I actually don't have much to say, but I was just going to mention one thing that I found quite interesting when I was reading up on the optimistic rollup versus zk rollup is that before CK rollup comes along, I guess people find that it's okay to have a 1 to 2 week wait time, just for the feature or the purpose of having a rollup. So it's quite interesting to that. So that's also kind of so that's related to the question 2, right? Talking about the differences between optimistic rollups and CK rollups. So the one of the definite advantage of CK rollup is the time that it takes to basically verify the transactions. So, and right, that came up to my mind because of the question whether the idea has to be CK related. So I guess for this course in particular, we're trying to kind of exploit the advantage of CK as much as possible. So that's the whole idea of this course.
And I guess I'm kind of curious for those who have gotten the number 2, and we ask you to kind of look into zk rollups, maybe other approaches. Does it seem like, and we ask you to maybe take a bet on which one will be the one that wins out, maybe in the short term or middle to long term. Was that kind of an obvious answer to you? And if you have an obvious answer, do you want to just type it in the chat? I'm kind of curious. Yeah. Yeah, so Samar is not bullish at all on optimistic rollups. Yeah, that's a sentiment I've seen pretty commonly on blog posts. But there just like seems to be slightly more uses with optimistic rollups, and but it seems like a lot of people are betting on ZK probably in the long future.
Didn't explore if there are solutions to speed up that withdrawal time of optimistic rollups. I think the time, the 1 to 2 week time was the fraud challenging period, right? So the intention to have it 1 to 2 week was to wait long enough so that there are someone who is honest who would challenge a dishonest transaction or a fraud transaction. So it's interesting. I don't know if there is any proposed solution to that. Let's see.
And I'm just going to link to, I don't know if anyone has come across that info on fraud proofs, but maybe that can spark any inspiration for you. It's a very nice, the whole blog post is quite nice, but there's a nice little explanation of the fraud proof and how it works. So maybe it can spark some inspiration within you.
Yeah, I guess the question with time is whether it's worth to risk the risk of fraud as to shorten the time. I actually don't know where the 1 to 2 week time, like time period for fraud challenge comes from anyway. Like what is it based on? Is it based on the probabilistic estimation, or let's see, maybe the link that Right, so the long delay is a system parameter. So it's a parameter that is defined on the smart contract or whatever, product that is. So I think it's just a general consensus that a week or two is enough for any challenge to come across a fraud. So it's probably an estimated time that is enough for that to happen. But why would you want to, I guess my question is, why would you want to bridge a optimistic rollup with a CK rollup, or instead of replacing it directly? I mean, that is in response to Samar's question. Right. You mean if you're using a product that uses the technology of optimistic rollup, then yes, the whatever transaction that happens has to be kind of delayed by a week or two before it's really, really verified. So in the case of withdrawal. I'm still not quite sure. Yeah, what do you mean by bridging it over to CK sync? Then you can shorten the time, right? So I guess the thing is yeah, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on what you mean by bridging over to CK sync. Okay. Yeah, so the optimistic rollup is a protocol itself. So I don't think you can if you choose to use whatever product that uses an optimistic rollup, you can't really bypass that protocol. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what's the motivation for providing such a early withdrawal though. Like, what's the incentive of that? Because for whoever that is providing that, I guess, early withdrawal or the liquidity, then seems like they are the one who is risking the transaction being a fraud and losing all liquidity. Let's see. Oh, interesting. So the article that Tosin, I hope I'm not pronouncing your name wrong, sent out just say that, so these liquidity providers basically run their own either a full L2 node or a verifier node, so that they can apply the transactions to the local state. So they essentially, they are running for certain fees to proactively verify that transaction. So in a way, it's not risky. It's just that they have to be paying for that. So for that, they are charging the user the fee to provide such liquidity. So Lenzel, but by saying having something as a collateral, is it a similar idea as the, what the liquidity providers does, is to run their own node or their own verifier, their own verifier node or L2 node to verify the transactions using the local state?
Maybe I can add a bit here. I mean, this is something that actually reminds me of how the bridges currently work. So some of the bridges actually, the bridges actually need collaterals as well. In fact, if someone put a collateral down, then obviously if anything goes wrong, then we can just seize the collateral. And so in a sense, that's a kind of like a cheap way, that's technically trivial way of mitigating the risk, right? So we don't have to make sure that things are absolutely correct. So that could be a way of lightening the burden on the CK component or the security issue. But the problem then, of course, is, well, first of all, you need people to put down collateral, so you heighten the entry threshold. So, and let's say it's someone who wants to just, I want to just move $1 from one chain to another. If I have to already put down another dollar as a collateral, then basically you are making things not so liquid for me, and overall the system also would not be so efficient. And that actually is a problem right now. If you think about it, the whole proof of stake architecture in blockchain is a bit of a problem. So given that we have so much money on, let's say, Harmony or any other proof of stake network, so much of the money is actually staked. That is, they are basically locked in the bank for providing security. It's not a very it's not the most liquid in terms of liquidity. It's not the most efficient solution. So there are arguments why you don't want to do that. So it would be nice if we don't even need to be collateralized. It can just be with the CK technology, just to guarantee that it would have to go through. You don't need to liquidate anyone because there can be no cheating, none of that. So that would be a better design in a way.
Mm, I actually don't know a lot about liquid sticking, so I don't think.
That's okay. That's okay. I actually know a little bit about liquid staking. Again, I'm not exactly an expert on this, but so there is a way that you can, after you stake, you can actually take your stake coins and then derive what is called a staking derivative. So derivatives are what in traditional finance people do as well. So any token or any contract that derives its value from something else is called derivative. So options will be a kind of derivative. So an option would be like a contract that I have for buying something from you in the future. So itself is not an asset, but the option, of course, would then have a value, right? Because if I say you let me buy a Bitcoin from you for $2, then that piece of contract would be very valuable, because having that option in a week would be probably be extremely valuable. Unless Bitcoin falls to below $2, touch wood, then it would be loses value. So the derivative would have these interesting properties that it can be traded today, but its final value would depend on tomorrow. So why do I talk about that? Because that allows you to make the liquid sticking a bit more feasible, because you can, after sticking, you can create something called sticking derivative. So you can think of it as the receipt of your staked tokens. So then you can actually trade that derivative. But the sticking locks up your money. So basically it's a bit like the Bitcoin option situation. That receipt for your stakes can only be materialized or can only be exchanged in real value when the staking period is over. But during staking, then you can create some sort of pseudo liquidity. That is, you can trade the receipt. So you, even though you locked your coins in the staking process, you can still have something to trade. Actually, you can use it to borrow money, for instance. So you can take your staking derivative as a collateral and borrow money. Then you have money to trade and buy stuff. But then your staking derivative will be liquidated if you fail to maintain your collateralized ratio, and then they would take your staking so you take your staking derivative such that if your staking period is over, they can take they can unstake your coin, so you lose the coin. So you can create some liquidity that way. It wouldn't affect the security, but it's a very deep topic. If you are interested, I can send you references to someone. Someone analyzed this to the core, and it can be very complicated, actually. But at least in principle, it should not open the security gate too widely. It allows some very subtle kinds of hacks. But it's really well beyond my pay grade. So I forward you to someone else, and it's kind of not what we cover in this course anyway. So again, on this collateral issue, Alexander asked if I put collateral of 3 ETH on layer 2, I generate fake transactions to send me 10 ETH. I'm willing to lose my collateral and get the 10 ETH if no one proved me wrong. Yeah, so this is something, again, I'm not an expert at all, but this is something that is related to this kind of optimism type of proof. So whenever you assume people are not wrong, then what if they are later challenged to be wrong? So you need to make sure that in that scenario, there will be enough things to compensate. So either, I mean, the solutions from the outset are either you put down a lot of collateral. So you put down like 20 ETH of collateral in order for you to trade. And that would be kind of stupid, right? Then I don't really want to do that. Some people might feel it's fine, right? Because it's like, I want to use basically layer 2 to buy coffee, to do something on an everyday basis. It's very cheap. But in order to enjoy that high speed, I'm willing to put down 1 ETH for the year. And then I'll enjoy these day-to-day cheap transactions very fast, knowing that basically no one's going to liquidate me. Then some people might be willing to do that. And in some ways we do that, right? We pay hefty entry fees for some certain clubs, like my credit card, I have to pay fees upfront in advance and stuff. Join like all those gold cards, diamond cards, so that you can do that. And then another scenario would be you basically set up some sort of probabilistic model. You assume that people, in case they get retrospectively challenged, and that happens very infrequently. So you can also do that and work out and make sure that statistically it doesn't happen enough for you to really hurt the asset value. And that's relatively unfavored. I think very few people favor that. I think that's too dicey. And especially once you set up the model, people, given so much stake is on chain, people would challenge those models and set up very clever fraud schemes to exploit that. And the third way is basically to say that when you after you do your layer 2 transactions, actually they're not final, and they just look final. They look like okay, mostly okay, but actually, if anything goes wrong, all of that will be void. So the finality might come very late. And in fact, that is a major problem on most of the current layer 2 solutions. In fact, some layer 1 solutions too. If I remember correctly, I think Avalanche has a similar problem. So Avalanche sells, I mean, the technology is extremely fast. I mean, it's from reading the white paper years ago, so they might have solved this. But in the beginning, I remember Emin Gansira, the professor behind Avalanche, proposed the solution is that you trust first and then verify later. And I think that was in a way kind of iffy thing for me. Like, yeah, you have a very fast, immediate solution, but the finality might take a long time. So those kind of solutions are, to my mind, not as good as like sharding, which has a much faster finality. So optimism rollup has these same problems too. So yeah, hopefully that helps.
I mean, if we don't have any more questions, I think it's totally fine for us to end here, but I just want to, I guess, wait for a couple more minutes to see if there's any further questions. Maybe someone is thinking about something or formulating something.
Yeah, while we're waiting, I can also say there's one sad fact, which is that I was supposed to sponsor some of you to come to the Stanford blockchain conference. Basically, I think the idea was that anyone who complete all the assignments on time will be given a little scholarship to do that. But unfortunately, as Omicron, unfolds, it looks like that the conference will be pushed to August. So basically, there won't be a conference in a couple of weeks. So I think what we would do is I might try to do an online informal mingle with you guys. Because the part of the conference is you get to go to the conference and meet other people. But I was also hoping would be a chance for me to meet some of you in person. So I might have a basically an informal drinking session, probably around this time. Not so good for Cathie. Cathie can drink coffee or milk. Is it? It's not a good time for you
No,
to
I'm
be
pretty good at it.
No, but free this time of the day.
Oh,
Or-
this time of
okay,
the day.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
drink.
It's
I-
7 a.m. here.
No judgment for morning drinking. But I might have a drinking session in 2 weeks. So I invite all of you who finished the assignments actually, and now maybe pay you a drink ticket to so that you can get to buy your own beverage at home and drink with me. I'll announce it on Discord too. So if you miss the details, you will get it again.
Oh.
So hopefully we'll get some FaceTime. If we come drinking, I hope you guys would all turn on the video. We get to actually have some chit chat rather than just this slightly one-sided talking and teaching.
Great.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, so I guess yeah, I don't see any more questions. So yeah, we'll call it a day. And
Yeah,
of
thanks,
course,
Cathie,
if you have any further questions for assignment 2, you can always post it on the channel. Okay, so thank you everyone. And we'll see you on Monday. Thursday. What am I talking about? Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday.
Thank you, guys. See you.
Thank you.